Hey everybody, welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another Choosing Beggar Reddit video. If you are new to the channel, then subscribe and click on notifications so you don't miss out on the fun. In our first story, a Choosing Beggar music director needs some help getting ready for the Christmas pageant, but don't charge me too much, it's Christmas. Let's jump right in. First things first, there are a few things I could have done differently here that I can assure you I take into account now. Everybody slips up once in a while, we'll get to that. This is kind of an interesting story I thought I'd share with people that is sort of a cross between an exposure story and an entitlement story. Being that the subject of this is music-oriented, there may be a few terms people are unaware of. I'll try my best to explain them. I also ramble a bit. Oh well, I hope you enjoy it. I'm a musician and also a copyist or orchestrator. Copyists are people who take your handwritten, scribbled music, put it into a computer program and make the nice, pretty sheet music that everybody uses. It's a little more involved than that, but that's the basic gist. Some work for bigger publishing companies, some are more freelance-based like me. So about a year and a half ago, a music director I had worked with in the past contacts me and tells me he has 4 pieces of music that he would like me to clean. He explained that the person that engraved them, that's putting the handwritten music into the computer, before did a terrible job. Wrong rhythms, bad spacing, all around hard to read. There were 4 choir pieces, 4 voice parts, and piano, although 2 of them were lacking a piano part, more on this later, for some supposed Christmas pageant. I don't really care what the subject of the music is, but this seemed to be a pretty easy, straightforward job. Cleaning a score is usually easy money, since it takes little work if you know what you're doing. Now this person who I'll call Jim, he's a character. I had a sort of kind of hate relationship with him from working with him in the past. He was difficult to work with and often encompassed all of the things people dislike in a music director: rude, arrogant, disorganized, inconsistent, didn't read music well, and threw his bandmates under the bus when he was called out by production for his mistakes. But given the circumstances I was in and how much we knew each other already, I really needed the money, so I offered him a flat rate of $140 at $35 a chart. He agreed and sent the charts over, which were quite messy as described. I got to work cleaning his scores, and by the end of the next day or so, I was finished. Like I thought, very easy work, and I had totally redone the scores with my own in-house templates in order to make them a bit more print-ready and readable. So I email him and tell him his scores are done and attach them for him to look over. This was my first mistake, and one that I definitely do not make anymore. You could say a very stupid mistake. But I gave somebody I had a long prior working relationship the benefit of the doubt, but now I always add a watermark to drafts for people to look over, regardless of how well they know me. It's nothing personal, it's because of stories like these. Great, thanks, Jim says. Can you add a piano part to those 2 that don't have one? Uh-oh, I think. Now there's a lot of variables here and it's almost intentionally vague. Do I make up my own piano part? Does he want me to add a piano part that he wrote? Lots of questions. Regardless, this wasn't originally part of the deal and would probably be more work than the initial project. So I tell him, we can discuss that, but first I'll need to be paid for the work I already did. This might seem a little cold to some, but let me describe it like this. You go to have your oil changed, pop out, and when you come back you say, thanks, but I'd like you to paint my car too. I'll come back and pay you for everything later when you're done. Yeah, no. So Jim responds like a robot by saying, here's an audio file with the piano part on it. Can you add that? Thanks. Attached is an audio file with long gaps between the songs, and it sounds as if it was recorded on a phonograph under the ocean in 1920. Yet again, I reiterate myself and tell him that transcription, writing down the sheet music from an audio file with no prior music written for it, wasn't initially discussed, and it would be a higher rate added on top. And that is true. Transcription work is very, very time-consuming, even if you are adept at it. So Jim disappears for a day or 2, so I reach out to email him to sternly remind him that he needs to pay me before we can even begin to discuss altering the files and adding transcription onto everything. How many files did I have you do again? 3? Jim asks. What? Was I born yesterday? No, 4, I said. You know, the 4 files that are attached in this email chain that we are reading, that you can see with your own eyeballs? Sorry, I forgot. Lol, Jim laughs. Haha, Jim disappears again for a few days. After emailing him again, Jim drops the transcript ordeal on his own accord and says, "So, an even $100, right?" After correcting him, Jim goes silent. Now, this was an off-the-book thing with someone, but I realized that I probably could have been way more proactive. Or maybe since we didn't sign an agreement or anything, you could say, flip me. I'm screwed and it's my fault. I get that. It's more that this was an acquaintance that I had known for years, and like I said, I foolishly gave him the benefit of the doubt. Also, it made for an interesting story. So about 2 months later, ironically on my birthday, Jim surprises me, lucky me, by paying me $100 on Facebook Messenger. At this point, I wasn't quite as worried with money and I knew this guy was going to continually jerk my chain, so I just let it go. I guess strike 3 for me, but at this point, I just said flip it, so I wrote, thanks, I guess. I always stick by my word, Jim writes. Oh, okay. How are some people like this? Fast forward about 6 months and guess who has the absolute audacity to contact me again? Yeah, this time he says something along, "Hey, those charts I had you do were for a Christmas pageant I'm writing. I attached a file for you. Could you transcribe the entire file?" Just for stuffs and giggles, I open the file. It's 90 minutes. 90 minutes! To put this in perspective, a 5-minute audio recording could take a few hours, a few days, or even over a week to transcribe given the complexity. But 90 minutes is crazy. It's not unheard of, but it's an extremely huge amount of work that would take ages. Something you wouldn't willy-nilly ask of someone. This would probably be a sit-down sort of thing. Now, I have no intention of working with this person, but just for my own morbid curiosity, I ask him, 90 minutes? Do you know how long that will take? When would you even need this by? 2 weeks, Jim responds. Maybe that's possible with a team of transcribers, but I don't know if that's even really possible by myself unless I worked tirelessly day in and day out. I'll also need you to write an overture, entr'acte, exit music, scene change music, and then orchestrate and write band parts for everyone, and make sheet music for all of that. So basically, write and engrave an entire musical in 2 weeks. Loony. This is a ludicrous amount of work that would take months, normally covered by a large group of people. Okay, I'll need $16,000, I say. Probably highballing for what the production will actually be, but not far off at all for other projects. I don't have that, but I'll pay $600, Jim says. Now, I'm just kind of amused by this. $600 won't even cover the transcription, I said. Well, I'm paying for this out of pocket, Jim says. I really need this done in 2 weeks. Okay, that'll be $16,000. Look, I really need this done, Jim says. I'm paying out of pocket. Well, I can't help you there. I really need this work done. Nobody is funding it but me. Okay, great. I don't owe you anything, actually. So he basically wanted me to write an entire musical that he could slap his name on in 2 weeks. It's almost like if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I have a circus I'm putting together, Jim Circus. I have the tent already, but I'm going to need you to come up with the animals, performers, and everything else by tomorrow. I'm also going to need you to find an investor so we can pay everyone's salaries. I'll pay you in coupons to the snack bar. I really need this done." So after a little more interesting back and forth, or more or less politely telling Jim he's SOL, and honestly insulting, and should really be careful about the way he goes about framing things in the future, because bigger groups of people or those with a more professional clientele would effectively blacklist him for this kind of behavior. Jim pulls the whole, "We work together, I got you started" spiel. I told him good luck on his Christmas pageant. Story number 2 shows us a choosing beggar mother-in-law who is very unhappy with her anniversary gift and sends a letter to Dear Prudence to prove she is right in shaming her daughter-in-law about it. Dear Prudence, my daughter-in-law enjoys knitting and crocheting. For her birthday, my husband and I gave her a generous gift card to a local yarn store, for which she thanked us and seemed very pleased. Imagine my dismay, however, when 6 months later for our anniversary she gifted us with a lovely bedspread, which she told me she made with yarn purchased from the gift card. I told my son that we'd in effect paid for our own present and that he needs to communicate to his wife how improper and stingy this move was. He refuses, saying that her labor and time were also part of the gift. We haven't spoken much since, except to discuss our grandchildren, and our daughter-in-law has been outright cold. I'm considering writing her a letter directly explaining why this was an improper gift and expressing my sadness that her own parents didn't teach her gift etiquette. My husband wants me to drop the whole thing and pretend like it never happened. Prudy, I don't like the idea of moving on as if nothing happened. For everyone who is curious, here's Prudence's answer. But nothing did happen. You received a thoughtful gift that cost more time than money. That's it. If someone gives you a present you don't like, you smile and say, "Thanks, how thoughtful," and then stash it in the back of your closet. You don't ask your kid to complain to the gift giver via back channel. It's fine if you like to give expensive presents and can afford to do so. But that's not the only way to show someone that you care. Even if you don't like knitwear, your daughter-in-law spent countless hours over the course of a half year working on something very detailed for you, and you said yourself it was a lovely bedspread. Whether she got the yarn with the gift card you gave her or spent her own money is beside the point. You're acting as if she re-gifted something when that clearly wasn't the case. Your daughter-in-law's gift was thoughtful and intricate. Yours was financially generous and relatively generic. There would be no reason to compare the two if you hadn't insisted on doing so in the first place. You are grown adults with plenty of money. If there's something you want for yourself, go ahead and buy it. This kind of petty scorekeeping around gift giving is barely excusable when little children do it. Writing her a letter to express sadness that her own parents didn't teach her proper etiquette would be wildly inappropriate, out of line, and an unnecessary nuclear option. And it's a guaranteed ticket to make sure you see and hear about your grandchildren way less than you do now. You still have time to salvage this relationship. Don't die on this hill. Let it go, apologize for your churlishness, and take yourself shopping if you want a pricey gift this year. This has been John from Slash Bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to see more of them, then hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.